Are there any problems on the front side you guys want to do? 16. Oops. Okay. So for 16, it's not written correctly, right? So if we had our notes out, we'd say, ooh, step 1 hasn't been done, because the first step is that you have to write it as a fraction. So what should I have? Okay. And can we just start like canceling and stuff? Yeah, we have to walk through the other steps, right? So step 2 is to make sure it's in decreasing order, and it is. And then step 3 is to factor. And what's the method of factoring for these ones? GCF. So between 27 and 72, what number could you divide out? 9. So we're going to take out a 9, and between m and m squared, what can we divide out? M. So 27 divided by 9 is 3. And we took out an m, but we still have one. And 72 divided by 9 is 8. And we took out the m. What can we divide out on the bottom? 9. 9 and an m. So 63 divided by 9. And we have an m, right? And then 36 divided by 9 is 4. And so what happens? 9 divided by 9 is 1. M divided by m is 1. We can cancel those out because they're in the front and they're being multiplied, and multiplication and division does cancel. We can't cancel out the parentheses because they're not identical. The only way you can cancel parentheses is if they're exactly the same. So we have 3m minus 8 and 7m minus 4. Is there another problem we should do on the front that you struggled with last night, maybe? All right, so 15, step 1 is already done. It's already written as a fraction. Step 2 is to make sure it's in descending order. Has step 2 been done? No, step 2 shows that it's not in descending order. Do you have your headphones in? You want to take your hood off too? Completely out? Hood off? All right. Do you have your headphones in? And hood down? We're not going to wear our hoods if we're going to use it to wear headphones. Why are we wearing headphones? Why are we wearing headphones right now? You know it's disrespectful, right? Okay, we're going to work on that. I'm not going to say headphones again. Okay? Okay? So we have to fix the order. So the top is fine. What do I write for the bottom? Okay. So step 1 is done. Step 2 is done. What's the third step? You have to factor, right? So we're looking for two things that multiply to be negative 20, but add to be negative 1, which you said was negative 5 and 4. So the top is p minus 5 and p plus 4. And then on the bottom, we're looking for two things that multiply to 16 but add to 8. 4 and 4. So p plus 4, p plus 4. Okay, and then what do you guys see? Yeah, p plus 4, p plus 4. All right, is there another one on the front page that we need to go over? So 17, if you look at the top and the bottom, those look pretty stinking similar, right? So we walk ourselves through the steps. Step 1 is done. It already looks like a fraction. Step 2 is done because they're already in decreasing order. Step 3 says to factor. And on your sheet, I had you highlight something. Do you remember what I had you highlight? It was under factoring. Yeah, so if you have a negative in the front, you have to take out the negative in the front. So I'm going to leave the top the same. On the bottom, I'm going to take out the negative. And once I take out the negative, what do I have left? But not plus anymore. Minus 13n plus 40. And now what do you guys see on the top and the bottom? They're exactly the same. So the entire top and the entire bottom cancel. I didn't even really have to factor that because unfactored, it was like exactly the same. So you just get the negative on the bottom, which means there's just -1. How did you guys do on the problems where you needed to find excluded values? So for 13, I can see 2 excluded values. What are they? N cannot equal 10. That's because of this one. What about the other one? N cannot equal 5. And then what do you guys see on number 13? What cancels? Yeah, n minus 10, n minus 10, those completely cancel. And so your answer should have been n minus 4 and n minus 5. What are your excluded values on 14? Not 7, not A. A does not equal... What would make it 0 out? 7 times what would become 0? 0. So whenever you have a GCF that's a variable on the front, that excluded value is always 0. This excluded value is going to be a fraction. Anyone know what it is? Starts with a negative. You're close, but it's a 4. -4/5. And then here we can say the 7's cancel, the A's cancel, and we're just left with the parentheses, right? What are the excluded values always when we have a monomial on the bottom? 0. So for this one, R cannot equal 0. For this one, X cannot equal 0. Okay, let's go ahead and flip to the back. So this page, you shouldn't have done any of these necessarily unless you were working ahead. So on this page, this is where the more difficult problems are, so you really have to watch for your 5 steps. So I'd like if we could take a moment and get out our notes from yesterday, so not the video notes, the notes that we did in class yesterday that you guys filled out. So let's do number 21. Let's use our notes and let's do 21. So what does step 1 say? Write it like a fraction. So we have 14 minus 2x over x squared minus 13x plus 42. So yeah, step 2 says you have to put in the correct order. So what's the correct order for the top? -2x plus 14. What does step 3 say? You have to factor it. So how do we factor the top? Take out a GCF. You have to take out a negative with it. So the GCF is 2, but we're going to take out a negative because it has a negative in the front. And that's what we highlighted on our notes, right? So we take out a negative 2, and then we end up getting x minus 7. On the bottom, we're factoring that. So we're looking for two things that multiply to be 42 and add to be negative 13. Okay, and what about the 7? Negative 7, negative 6. So we have x minus 6 and x minus 7. Okay. So we can only cancel parentheses if they're identical. And x minus 7 and x minus 7 are exactly the same, right? So we've got negative 2 over x minus 6. All right, let's try another one. I'm going to not do 24 only because I don't think it's that difficult. Once you start it, I'm going to do a more difficult one. Let's jump down to number 30. Why would I say number 30 is more difficult? Yeah, well, they're not both slide divide, actually. The top one is slide divide. Okay, so let's do the top one. So we have 7 times 6 is 42. So we are multiplying to 42, but adding to negative 17. So if you're stuck on this, what could you do in your calculator? 42 divided by x, and we're going to look for two negative numbers. Say it again. We're multiplying to 42 and adding to negative 17. Negative 14 and negative 3. Okay, so we have x minus 14 and x minus 3. Are those the two factors? Not a 7 in front. You have to divide it by a 7. X minus 2 and 7x minus 3. Okay, so the top is x minus 2, 7x minus 3. On the bottom, you have a GCF of 5, right? Okay. So if we take out that GCF of 5, that would leave us with x squared minus 3x plus 2. Yeah, so if we're looking for what multiplies to 2 but adds to negative 3, then that's negative 2 and negative 1. So we do have that GCF 5 in the front, x minus 2, x minus 1, and then the x minus 2's would cancel because those parentheses are identical. You can multiply it to the x minus 1, but you don't need to. You could just leave it out. So 7x minus 3 on top, because there's nothing else. On the bottom, you have a 5 and an x minus 1. If you want to multiply the 5 back into the x minus 1, you can, but it's not necessary. A lot of probably multiple choice answer, I would think, would leave the 5 out, but I'm not positive. Yeah. Yeah. So for 28, it's written as a fraction. It's in decreasing order. We have to factor. The top is pretty easy to factor, right? What method do we use to factor the top? GCF of 4. So we take out the 4, and what's left over? R plus 2. Okay. On the bottom, we're looking, this is another slide divide problem. So 5 times negative 18, negative 90. So we're looking for two things that multiply to negative 90, but add to a positive 1. 10 and negative 9. So we have r plus 10, r minus 9, but those are not the factors. We don't leave it like that. divide by 5. And why did you divide by 5? Yeah, so the number that you slid is the number we divide by. So 10 divided by 5 is 2, so we have r plus 2. 9 divided by 5 does not reduce. 5r minus 9, okay? And then what do you guys see? The r plus 2 and the r plus 2 completely cancel. Okay, so I'm going to let you guys work on this for a bit. The answer key is the top one on the board, so you can check the answers as you go, and then call me over if you need help, all right? Yeah. If there's a number in the front and it's not a GCF. So on this one, there was a number in the front, but everything was divisible by 5, so that's why it wasn't slide divide.